1929 all over again. Pretty stark words, aren't they?
Yeah, definitely gets your attention.
That's the warning Donald Trump has issued. He's claiming if his tariffs are, removed by the courts, we're staring down an economic collapse, like the Great Depression kind of collapse. So today in this deep dive, our mission is really to cut through that kind of, dramatic rhetoric and the political noise surrounding it.
Right.
We want to help you figure out what's genuinely real, what's maybe more political theater, and maybe most importantly, how fear itself can be used, like a weapon almost, in these economic discussions.
Exactly. And to do that, we've pulled from analyses that really try to deconstruct these powerful economic narratives. We're focusing specifically on tariffs, but also diving into the historical context of 1929, the Great Depression.
Yeah.
Yeah. This deep dive is really designed to give you the most important nuggets of knowledge, the key insights, so you can navigate these, well, let's face it, complex discussions with more clarity and maybe some confidence, too.
Good. So let's set the stage properly with this particular scare story. Donald Trump's assertion, it's pretty direct. Take away his tariffs and bam, it's 1929 again.
Very direct.
He clearly wants that specific historical event, 1929, to be a dramatic fear trigger to support his trade policies.
He's like it.
But why 1929 specifically? I mean, what makes that year such a powerful, almost instant trigger in politics?
Well, that's a great question because it is incredibly potent, isn't it?
Yeah.
1929 just evokes such a dire, catastrophic comparison in people's minds. It's basically shorthand for absolute disaster.
Right, like a code word.
Exactly. Politicians don't need to explain all the nuances. They just say 1929, and the emotional impact is immediate. It's visceral. It's almost like a political command to, run for the hills.
And that kind of shorthand, it seems incredibly effective at shaping how people feel, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely.
We're talking about headlines that can really quickly influence public sentiment, market psychology, often before any actual policy changes even happen.
Yeah, the narrative hits first.
It sounds like the story itself creates an immediate impact.
Precisely. And this really highlights a deeper point, I think. Just how powerful these economic narratives are. They influence behavior, sometimes even without a fundamental shift in the actual economy.
Just the fear.
The fear alone can be a driver,
Yeah.
Irrespective of the, underlying realities.
Yeah. Okay, so we've established why 1929 is such a potent fear trigger, but let's try and move past the rhetoric now and really dig into the actual economics. Is today's economy really on the brink of a 1929 repeat if tariffs shift?
Right. Let's ground this.
The sources we looked at, they really dig into the true causes of the 1929 crash, and, they paint a much more complex picture than just, one policy change.
They absolutely do. The 1929 collapse, it was primarily driven by a really dangerous mix of things. Speculative bubbles, for one.
Okay.
Then there was excessive margin debt. That's basically money people borrowed to buy stocks. Lots of it.
Risky.
Very. And also a significant monetary contraction. Yeah. Essentially, the money supply just shrank quite suddenly.
Wow.
So it was this complex combination of systemic vulnerabilities. It wasn't just the removal of a specific trade policy like tariffs causing it all.
That makes a lot more sense. A confluence of factors, not just one thing.
Exactly.
So if you compare that intricate web of problems back then to today's economy, it sounds like we're not just a little bit different, but maybe fundamentally structured in a way that could resist a similar catastrophe.
That's the argument, yes. Today's economy is seen as significantly more resilient.
Can you walk us through maybe the most critical of these modern safeguards, the things we have now that were largely absent back in 1929?
Absolutely. So today we have much more robust safety nets. Think about things like unemployment insurance, deposit insurance, FDIC. Those protect individuals, but also the wider system.
Right, buffers.
Buffers, exactly. And crucially, central banks have evolved enormously. We now have, sophisticated tools for managing the money supply. Things like adjusting interest rates, quantitative easing.
QE, right?
Which is basically when central banks buy assets to inject money into the economy if needed. These mechanisms provide a level of stability that just, it wasn't available in 1929.
Okay.
Plus, you add in increased global diversification of economies. It all builds a more resilient system. These factors combined, they make a repeat of that kind of catastrophic collapse seem, let's say, highly unlikely.
Highly unlikely. That's a really powerful contrast. So, okay, if we look at the actual data then, the sort of nuanced impacts of different tariff scenarios, we see something very different from the catastrophe narrative.
Mm-hmm.
The analyses we reviewed, they present, I think it was 4 distinct tariff scenarios. And crucially, none of them suggest a 1929 level disaster. It really paints a picture of like variation, not catastrophe. Is it fair?
That's absolutely fair. It's variation, not catastrophe.
Yeah.
Let's unpack those scenarios quickly because the nuance here is really key.
Okay.
First, you've got the baseline scenario. This is basically if tariffs are just maintained as they are. The models show real GDP staying pretty flat, 0.0% change compared to the baseline. It's the status quo.
Okay, status quo. Got it. Then there's the orderly rollback.
Right. This assumes a phased removal of tariffs.
Yeah.
Gradually, over maybe 12 to 18 months.
And the impact.
This gradual approach is actually projected to give a slight boost to GDP, estimated around positive 0.2%, plus lower prices for consumers.
So a positive outcome, actually, not a collapse.
Not a collapse, no. Then what's particularly revealing, I think, is the abrupt removal scenario.
This is the one that directly addresses Trump's claim, right?
Yeah.
A court orders tariffs gone overnight, plus you get a shock from the uncertainty.
Exactly. Now, the analysis does predict some short-term disruption because of that uncertainty. That makes sense.
Yeah.
But importantly, it explicitly states this would not lead to a 1929 level collapse. The projected negative impact on real GDP is around minus 0.15%.
Okay, so noticeable, a blip, maybe, but fundamentally different from, the Great Depression.
Fundamentally different, yes. A blip, not a cataclysm.
And it's fascinating, actually, to see that the fourth scenario, the escalation scenario, which is an across-the-board hike in tariffs that actually has the most significant negative impact in these models.
That's right.
It leads to higher prices, risks economic retaliation from other countries, and the models show about a minus 0.3% hit to real GDP compared to the baseline.
Correct. So in these models, the scenario causing the most significant negative impact is actually increasing tariffs, not removing them abruptly.
So it seems like the data just doesn't back up the doomsday prophecy about removing tariffs. If anything, it slightly contradicts it.
It certainly appears that way based on these analyses. These models suggest that while tariff changes do have economic impacts, absolutely, those impacts are nuanced. They're far from catastrophic, especially when you compare them to the really complex systemic drivers of the Great Depression back in '29.
Yeah.
The numbers really paint a picture of variation. Like you said, maybe some headwinds, maybe some tailwinds, depending on the scenario, but not, falling off a cliff.
Right. Which brings us to a really crucial point then. If the actual economic impact of these tariff changes, even in the sort of worst-case removal scenario, is so much less severe than that 1929 alarm bell,
Right.
why? Why do politicians strategically use these, like, worst-case historical analogies? What's the play?
Well, it seems to be about manipulating public sentiment, really, and gathering support for their preferred policies.
So,
By invoking such dire comparisons like 1929, they make politically very risky for opponents to challenge their positions. I mean, who wants to be seen as the person arguing for something that might supposedly lead to an economic collapse? It creates kind of political paralysis for the opposition. Makes them hesitant.
that's a powerful move. Clever, in a way.
And what's particularly maybe cynical but also effective is that this strategy sets up a told-you-so opportunity later.
How do you mean?
Well, if the economy experiences any kind of downturn later on, for any reason, the politician who sounded the alarm can point back and say, "See, I warned you this would happen if you didn't follow my plan."
Right. Regardless of the actual cause of the downturn.
Exactly. It helps lock in public and political support, even if the link isn't really there. It reinforces their narrative.
That's the real power then, isn't it? It feels like the core message here from the analysis is that the true impact isn't just in the policy itself, the tariff, the threat. It's profoundly in the story that gets built around it.
I think that's spot on. The actual economic policy is often less significant in terms of immediate public reaction than the narrative. Understanding the story behind this scare, that's what allows you, the listener, to really see through these tactics, to separate the reality from the rhetoric.
Okay, so if the story behind the scare is so potent, what's your playbook? How should you navigate these economic narratives, maybe especially if you're an investor or just trying to make sense of the news?
Yeah, what do you do with this?
Our sources offer some pretty strong advice here. They essentially tell you to, well, filter out the political noise, actively try to tune it out, because these narratives, they're often designed purely to manipulate how people feel, not necessarily to reflect measurable economic impacts.
Precisely. Instead of reacting to the noise, your focus should probably be on the real economic data. What are the numbers actually saying? Also, understanding your own personal financial exposure, what actually affects you, and then making rational, evidence-based decisions rather than, reacting impulsively every time there's a dramatic headline.
Staying grounded in reality, not the story.
Staying grounded in the measurable reality, yeah.
And here's where it gets really interesting, almost paradoxical. These fear-driven narratives, even though they have this negative intent, they can actually create unique opportunities. For informed investors, anyway.
How so? It sounds counterintuitive.
Well, while everyone else might be hitting the panic button based on the scary story, the informed investor, the one who understands the difference between the narrative and the reality, might be quietly looking for bargains.
Okay. Because the fear itself is driving market behavior, not necessarily the fundamentals.
Exactly. The irrationality, the panic that often comes with these big scare stories. It can lead to widespread panic selling. People just dump assets, driving prices down.
Right.
So savvy investors, the ones who've done their homework and understand the real picture, they can potentially leverage these moments of market irrationality. They can make strategic buying moves when others are just reacting impulsively out of fear.
So it's about identifying both kind of panic selling, but also the potential buying opportunities that arise from that panic.
Yeah.
By understanding the underlying structure, not just getting caught up in the noise.
That's the idea. See the fear, understand its source, but focus on the fundamentals.
Makes sense.
So just to really wrap this up and reiterate the central message of this deep dive, the true power in a lot of economic discourse, it seems, lies not solely in the policy itself like a tariff, but profoundly in the narrative that gets built around it.
Yeah, the story matters a lot.
And understanding this difference, understanding how stories are used, that allows you to better discern reality from political theater and hopefully make more informed decisions.
Absolutely. And maybe here's a final thought for you, the listener, to take away.
Okay.
How might understanding this whole story behind the scare concept, specifically in this tariff discussion we've unpacked, how might that empower you to critically assess other politically charged economic headlines, the ones you'll inevitably encounter, tomorrow or next week?
Something to ponder. How does this apply elsewhere?
Yeah. How can you use this lens going forward?